The red desert of planet Sera 4 stretched farther than the eye could see. It was a world of endless dunes, rust-colored winds, and quiet skies that glowed with twin suns. Few humans lived there. Most came only to mine rare minerals or to transport supplies between the lonely outposts scattered across the wasteland. Ryan was one of those people. He worked as a supply runner, driving a heavy sand rover that carried food, water, and spare machine parts from one station to another. His life was simple and silent. Every journey took him through hundreds of kilometers of empty land, where only the sound of the wind and the hum of the rover engine kept him company. He had learned to read the desert like a book. The movement of dust told him where storms were forming. The color of the rocks told him where the ground was weak. To him, the desert was not empty. It was alive. It had its own moods, and he had learned to respect them. One morning, while he was heading toward the northern outpost, a sharp beep came from the rover's signal scanner. Ryan frowned. The scanner had caught a faint distress call. The frequency was strange, not one used by human equipment. He slowed down and turned the dial, trying to make sense of the noise. A soft voice spoke through static, repeating the same broken phrase again and again. It sounded like someone asking for help. Ryan checked the coordinates. The signal was coming from the east near an old rock valley known for dust storms. Few people went there because the sand could swallow machines whole. Still, he could not ignore a distress call. He adjusted his route and drove toward it. The journey took hours. The heat pressed down like a weight, and the wind carried fine dust that stuck to his suit. By the time he reached the valley, the suns were already leaning toward the horizon, casting long shadows over the land. The signal grew stronger until it led him to a cluster of sharp rocks half buried in the sand. At first, he saw nothing. Then he noticed something shiny among the stones. It looked like metal, smooth and curved. As he came closer, he realized it was not just metal, but a piece of a broken craft. Its design was unlike any human ship he had ever seen. It was elegant, shaped like a silver wing, but shattered into fragments. Near the wreckage lay a figure. Ryan stopped in surprise. A person was lying face down in the sand, motionless. He ran toward them, brushing away the dust. The figure was female, tall and slender, wearing a torn suit made of a strange fabric that shimmered faintly under the light. Her skin was pale silver, her hair almost white, and her eyes, when they opened, glowed faint blue. For a moment, Ryan froze. He had seen holograms of other species before, but never one in person. The woman was clearly not human. She tried to speak, but her voice cracked. Her lips moved, forming unfamiliar words. Then, with effort, she said in broken human speech, "Help, please." Ryan quickly knelt beside her and opened his pack. He gave her a small container of water and poured some over her lips. She drank slowly, her hands trembling. Her skin was cold to the touch, much colder than his. "You are safe," Ryan said gently. "You are going to be fine." She blinked, trying to focus on his face. "Where am I?" she asked. "You are on Sera 4, he answered. "A desert world." "Who are you?" Her eyes closed halfway as she whispered. "Alara, I am Vailari." Ryan had heard that name before. The Vailari were one of the ancient races known in the outer colonies. They were explorers, scientists, and builders who had vanished long ago after their empire fell. Few believed any still lived, yet here she was, lying half buried in the sand of a forgotten planet. Ryan lifted her carefully and carried her to the rover. She was light, almost weightless, as if her bones were hollow. He placed her inside and covered her with a blanket. The temperature outside was dropping fast as night approached. Sera 4's nights were cold enough to freeze metal. He started the heater and checked her pulse again. It was weak but steady. Hours passed before she opened her eyes fully. The warm light inside the rover flickered against the metal walls, and the hum of the heater filled the small cabin. Ryan sat nearby, fixing a damaged panel while keeping an eye on her. She studied him silently, her gaze curious. "You helped me?" she said softly. Ryan nodded. "Anyone would have done the same." She shook her head. "Not everyone helps strangers in the desert." Ryan gave a small smile. "Maybe not, but you looked like you needed it." She turned her eyes toward the small window where sand blew against the glass. "My ship crashed," she said slowly. "Storm came. I was separated. The others may be gone," Ryan asked carefully. "You were with more of your kind?" "Yes," she whispered. "A survey team. We came to study the old worlds. I do not know what happened after the storm hit." He leaned back in his seat, thinking, "Then we will find them. Or what's left of them. Tomorrow, when the wind settles, I will check for more signals." She looked at him again, her glowing eyes softening. "You would help me?" "Of course," he said simply. "You are not alone anymore." For a while, neither spoke. The desert wind whistled outside, but inside the rover it was calm. Alara looked around, touching the metal walls with interest. "Human design," she murmured. "Simple but strong," Ryan laughed quietly. "That is one way to describe it." Her attention moved to him again. "You are alone?" she asked. "Yes," he said. "Always have been. It is easier that way. Less trouble." Alara tilted her head. "But also less warmth," he paused. The truth of her words settled deep inside him. He had never thought much about it. Out here in the silence of Seraph 4, there was no one to talk to, no one to share the sunsets with. He had grown used to the quiet, but maybe that quiet had become a cage. After a moment, he said, "You speak good human for someone not from here." She gave a faint smile. "Our people studied many human worlds. Your language was one of the first we learned." "It is simple, but your ways are not," he smiled. "That is fair." They talked a little more. She told him about her world, a place of blue skies and crystal towers. She spoke of the Valerie's fall, how war and pride had torn them apart, how many fled to the stars seeking peace. Her voice grew softer as she said, "I do not know if any others remain." Ryan listened without interrupting. He could feel the loneliness in her tone. It was the same kind of loneliness that filled the desert around them. As the night deepened, Ryan offered her some food. She accepted, though she ate slowly, unfamiliar with human taste. When she finished, she leaned back against the seat, her eyes heavy with exhaustion. "You should rest," Ryan said. "Tomorrow we will search the area." Alara nodded. "Thank you, Ryan." She spoke his name carefully, as if memorizing it. He set the heater to a steady level and turned off the main lights. The rover's instruments blinked softly in the dark. Outside, the wind howled like a distant creature. Ryan sat by the controls, watching the night. He could not stop thinking about the strange woman sleeping behind him. A lost alien alone on a dead world, rescued by a simple man with a rusty rover. It felt unreal, yet looking at her peaceful face, he felt a strange sense of purpose awaken inside him. When dawn came, the light of the twin suns filled the rover. The storm had passed, leaving the sky clear and golden. Alara stirred and opened her eyes. Ryan handed her a warm drink. "We start today," he said. "We will find your people." She looked out at the desert stretching before them. The sand glowed like fire under the suns. "The desert is wide," she said. "Then we better start early," Ryan replied with a grin. They packed their supplies and secured the equipment. Ryan adjusted the rover's scanners to track any trace of alien metal or energy. Alara sat beside him, her eyes focused ahead as if she could see beyond the horizon. The rover began to move, its wheels cutting tracks across the soft sand. As they drove, Ryan glanced at her. She seemed more alive now, her strength returning. There was a calm confidence in her posture, but also a quiet sadness that never left her eyes. He wondered what she had lost and what she still hoped to find. Hours later, they stopped at a rocky ridge. Ryan climbed out to check the readings while Alara followed. The wind tugged at her pale hair as she looked across the desert. "This world was once full of life," she said softly. "I can feel it. My people studied many planets like this, but we never stayed. We moved from world to world, always searching, never belonging." Ryan looked at her and said, "Maybe you will find a place to belong now." She turned to him and smiled faintly. "Maybe." The wind carried the sound of shifting sand, and somewhere in the distance a faint metallic glimmer shone under the sun. Ryan checked his scope and saw another wreck, smaller but intact enough to hold answers. He pointed toward it. "There, we start there." Alara's eyes brightened with hope. Together they climbed back into the rover and set off once more into the blazing sea of sand. The journey ahead was uncertain, but neither of them felt alone anymore. For the first time in years, Ryan felt that the desert was not empty. It was the beginning of something new. The sun was high over Seraph 4, shining down on a vast sea of red sand. The desert stretched endlessly in all directions, broken only by rocks and half-buried ruins of an age long gone. The heat made the air shimmer, and every sound faded into the endless wind. Ryan guided the rover carefully over the rough terrain. The engine hummed with effort as they climbed small dunes and crossed deep valleys filled with dust. Alara sat beside him, quiet but alert. Her glowing blue eyes scanned the horizon as if searching for something familiar. The faint signal from the crash site behind them had gone silent. Now they followed a new direction, guided by Alara's memory and the faint readings of alien energy that flickered on the rover's scanner. Ryan trusted her sense more than the machine. She seemed to feel the world around her in a way that no human could. They had been traveling for hours when Alara spoke. "This world feels strange," she said softly. "The ground holds memory. I can sense echoes of old power, hidden deep below." Ryan glanced at her. "You mean there are more ruins out here?" "Yes," she said. "My people built small research stations on planets like this one. We studied the way worlds change over time. I remember the symbols in our maps. One station should be near this region." Ryan adjusted the scanner and checked the readings. "If that is true, maybe we can find something there. Shelter supplies, maybe even a way to send a stronger signal." Alara nodded. "Yes, the beacon I used was weak. The real communication cores might still be in that station." The idea gave Ryan new energy. A working alien base could mean safety. It could also mean discovery. He had lived his whole life on the edge of forgotten space, but he had never found anything this mysterious. As they moved deeper into the desert, the terrain began to change. The flat dunes gave way to sharp ridges of dark rock, and the sand turned from red to copper. Strange plants with crystal leaves grew between the stones, glowing faintly under the sunlight. Ryan slowed the rover, studying them with interest. "Are these from your people?" he asked. Alara touched one of the plants gently. "No, they are native to this world. Beautiful and strong. They survive in places where others cannot." She looked at him and smiled. "Like you," Ryan laughed. "I am not sure about beautiful, but I try to survive." She tilted her head, curious. "Humans always use humor when they feel uncertain. It is strange but kind." "It helps when the world feels too big," he said. For a moment they both fell silent, listening to the wind. The peace lasted until the rover's warning light blinked red. Ryan checked the control screen and frowned. "Engine temperature is rising," he muttered. "Dust must have blocked one of the vents." He stopped the rover near a ridge and stepped outside to check the back panel. The heat hit him like a wave. His boots sank slightly in the soft sand as he crouched down. Fine dust had built up in the vents. He pulled out a small brush and started clearing it. Alara joined him, kneeling beside the machine. Her hands glowed faintly as she touched the metal. The glow spread across the surface and the dust loosened by itself. Ryan stared in surprise. "What did you do?" "Energy control," she explained. "My people learned to guide small forces with thought. It is simple for me," he grinned. "Simple," she says. "You just fixed what would have taken me an hour." She smiled. "Then you should keep me with you." "I'm useful." Ryan met her eyes. "I do not doubt that." When the repair was done, they climbed back inside. The rover started smoothly, and they continued onward. By evening, they reached a canyon filled with tall stone pillars. The scanner beeped softly, showing a faint energy signal from below. Ryan parked the rover near the edge. Together, they climbed down a narrow path that led into the canyon floor. At the bottom, half buried under sand and stone, they found a metal door. It was covered in strange patterns that shimmered when Alara touched them. The door responded to her presence, and with a low hum it slid open. Inside was a dark passage filled with dust. Ryan turned on his light. "This must be one of your old stations." Alara stepped inside slowly. "Yes, I recognize the symbols. This place was built long before I was born. It feels lonely now." They walked through the narrow hall until they reached a large chamber. The room was filled with machinery, most of it silent and broken. Dust floated in the air and soft blue lights flickered weakly on the walls. Ryan examined one of the consoles. "Can we power this place?" "Maybe," Alara said. She placed her hands on a small crystal near the center of the room. Her body glowed faintly as energy pulsed through the structure. One by one, the lights came alive, filling the chamber with a calm blue glow. Ryan looked around in awe. "You brought it back to life." Alara smiled faintly. "Only for a short time. The main core is damaged, but it should be enough to check the archives." She moved to another console and began typing symbols that Ryan could not understand. The holographic screen came alive, showing maps, records, and data about the planet. Most of the files were corrupted, but one showed the location of another Violari outpost farther north. There, Alara said, pointing. That is where our main ship might have fallen. If we can reach it, I might be able to call for help. Ryan nodded. Then that is where we go next. Before they could leave, a low rumble echoed through the canyon. Dust fell from the ceiling. Ryan drew his blaster instinctively. What was that? Alara frowned. Movement above us. The rumble grew louder. Suddenly the floor cracked open near the far wall and something large burst through the sand. A desert creature, shaped like a massive worm with a mouth full of glowing teeth, lunged toward them. Ryan fired his blaster, the energy bolt striking its side, but the creature kept coming. Its scales reflected the light like armor. Alara raised her hands and a wave of blue light burst from her palms. The creature froze, stunned by the energy. Run, she said sharply. Ryan did not argue. They sprinted toward the exit, the ground shaking behind them. The worm roared, smashing through metal walls as it chased them. They reached the canyon edge and climbed up the rocks as the creature burst out of the tunnel behind them. Sand exploding into the air. When they reached the top, Ryan turned and fired again, hitting a weak spot under its jaw. The beast screamed and fell back into the canyon, vanishing under the sand. Breathing heavily, Ryan looked at Alara. What was that thing? Desert Guardian, she said between breaths. They were created long ago to protect the old sites. I did not think any still lived. Ryan shook his head. Remind me to thank your ancestors for that. Despite the danger, Alara smiled slightly. You fought bravely, human, he smiled back. You fought better. They returned to the rover, both exhausted but alive. As night fell, they set up a small camp near a rock wall. Ryan started a small heater while Alara sat beside the soft glow, watching the stars. The Vailari built much, she said quietly, but we destroyed just as much. Our power made us proud. We forgot the meaning of small things like kindness and patience. Your people still have that. Ryan poked the fire with a metal rod. Maybe because we have not reached your level of power. She looked at him thoughtfully. Or maybe because you have something we lost. You still believe in helping others. He looked at her and said, I only did what anyone should do. She smiled gently. You always say that, but not everyone does what you did. You came into the storm for someone you did not know. Ryan shrugged. It just felt right. They sat in silence for a while, listening to the soft wind. The twin moons rose high, casting silver light across the desert. Alara lay back, gazing at the stars. Her face looked peaceful. Your stars look different from mine, she said. But they shine the same. Ryan nodded. They remind me that we are all part of the same sky. Later, when Alara slept, Ryan stayed awake, checking the map again. The next outpost was far, more than 2 days' travel north. He felt tired but determined. Something inside him told him that this journey meant more than just helping a stranger. It felt like fate pulling two distant worlds together. In the morning, Alara woke first and began packing their gear. When Ryan opened his eyes, she smiled. The suns will rise soon. We should move before the heat grows. Ryan nodded and helped her load the supplies into the rover. Before they left, he looked back at the canyon. The sand had already started to fill the hole the creature had made, as if the desert wanted to bury its secrets again. They set off toward the north, following the coordinates from the archive. The rover moved steadily across the dunes, leaving long tracks behind them. As the day went on, Alara hummed softly, a song in a language Ryan did not know. It was calm and haunting, like the sound of wind over water. When he asked about it, she said, It is a song from home. It means hope, Ryan smiled. Then keep singing. We could use some of that. By evening, they reached a high plateau where the air was cooler. From there, they could see the distant shimmer of something metallic half buried in the sand far ahead. Alara leaned forward, her eyes wide. That is it. The second station. Ryan tightened his grip on the controls. Then that is where we go next. As the rover rolled toward the horizon, the suns dipped low, painting the sky in gold and red. The desert stretched endlessly, but for the first time, Ryan felt that it was leading them somewhere that mattered. He did not know what waited ahead. Ruins, danger, or a new beginning. But he knew he would face it beside her. The suns rose slowly over the desert, lighting up the sand with shades of gold and fire. Ryan drove the rover through a stretch of rolling dunes, following the faint energy trail that led to the second Vailari station. Alara sat beside him, her silver hair catching the sunlight as she studied the scanner. They had traveled for more than 2 days since leaving the canyon. The journey was long and rough, but both of them had grown used to the silence of the desert. The bond between them had also grown stronger. They spoke often, not only about the mission but about life, memories, and small details of their worlds. Rian told her about his childhood on a mining moon, where he learned to fix machines and survive with little. Alara told him about her city of glass towers on her homeworld, where the air shimmered with energy and the stars were bright enough to touch. Both of them had come far from where they started. By afternoon, the scanner began to pulse faster. A strong signal appeared ahead, deep under the sand. Ryan slowed the rover and checked the reading twice to be sure. The signal was clear and strong. Whatever was down there still had power. That must be it, he said. Alara nodded. Yes, the city is beneath us. Ryan blinked. City? I thought it was another outpost. Alara smiled faintly. It was more than that. The Velari built research stations, but some of them grew into hidden cities. They were meant to protect knowledge in case of disaster. My people believe that wisdom should never die, even if we did. Rian looked around. There was nothing but sand and wind. How do we get in? Alara stepped out of the rover and closed her eyes. The air around her shimmered slightly as she reached out with her mind. The ground began to tremble softly. Lines of blue light appeared in the sand, forming a wide circle. Then, with a low hum, part of the desert floor sank down, revealing a staircase leading deep underground. Ryan stared in awe. You just opened that with your mind, Alara smiled. It remembered my kind. It knows I am Velari. They grabbed their gear and started down the stairs. The air below was cool and dry, filled with the faint scent of old metal and dust. The walls glowed with gentle blue light, showing carvings and symbols that told stories of the past. When they reached the bottom, Ryan's breath caught. Before them lay a massive underground city. Tall spires of crystal and metal stretched high toward the ceiling, their tips glowing softly. Wide bridges connected the towers, and streams of energy flowed through glass channels like rivers of light. The city was silent but still alive, preserved under the sand for ages. Alara walked forward slowly, her eyes wide with emotion. This is Velaris, she whispered. One of the last cities my people built before the fall. I cannot believe it still stands. Ryan followed her, looking around in wonder. It is beautiful. She nodded, but her voice trembled. It feels like walking through a dream. My ancestors lived here, worked here, studied here. Now it is only memory. They crossed a wide bridge leading to the central tower. The doors opened as they approached, reacting to Alara's presence. Inside was a large hall with tall pillars and glowing walls. In the center stood a circular platform with a crystal console. This must be the archive, Alara said. If we activate it, we might learn what happened to the others. Ryan set down his pack and checked his tools. What do you need? Just a stable power flow. I can handle the rest. He nodded and began connecting small power cells from the rover to the console's side ports. Alara placed her hands on the crystal surface. Her blue energy flowed into it, lighting up the hall. Holographic screens appeared all around them, showing symbols and moving lines of data. Alara's eyes followed the patterns as she translated them. It says that this city was sealed after the last Velari fleet left. They believed this planet would serve as a resting place for knowledge and for those who could not leave. Ryan asked quietly. So some of your people stayed behind? She nodded. Yes, they stayed, hoping to rebuild. But there are no life signs here. I think time took them. Her voice softened at the end, filled with sorrow. Ryan reached out and placed a hand on her shoulder. You are not alone now. Alara looked at him and gave a small nod. Thank you. She turned back to the console and searched deeper into the records. Suddenly, a new screen appeared showing a map of the region. At the edge of the desert near the mountains was a blinking light. That is a signal beacon, she said. It must belong to my people's last ship. Ryan studied the map. Then we need to reach it. Before she could reply, the ground beneath them shook slightly. The lights flickered. Ryan looked up. What was that? Alara frowned. The power system is unstable. When we activated the core, it must have triggered defense protocols. A deep humming sound filled the air. From the shadows of the hall, shapes began to move. Metal figures stepped forward, their eyes glowing red. They were tall and slender, shaped like Velari but made of steel and crystal. Automated guardians, Alara said. They were designed to protect the city. Ryan drew his blaster. Do they know you are one of them? They should, she said, then hesitated. Unless their memory systems decayed. The Guardian stopped a few steps away, scanning both of them. One spoke in a metallic voice that echoed through the hall. Identify. Alara stepped forward and said clearly, Alara of the Vailari. Access code Sigma 9. The Guardian stood still for a moment. Then the red light in their eyes faded to blue. One of them bowed slightly. Recognition confirmed. Welcome, Alara of the Vailari. Ryan lowered his weapon with relief. That was close. But before they could relax, one of the damaged Guardians at the back sparked and malfunctioned. Its red light flared again, and it raised an energy weapon. Ryan pulled Alara aside just as a blast hit the wall near them. The sound echoed through the hall. Ryan returned fire, hitting the machine's arm and knocking it back. The other Guardians moved to restrain their malfunctioning companion. After a few tense moments, the danger passed. Alara looked shaken. Their systems are decaying. This place cannot hold much longer. Ryan helped her stand. Then we should leave while we can. Before leaving, Alara quickly downloaded what data she could from the archives. The crystal tablet in her hand glowed softly, holding the information. Then they made their way back toward the stairs. As they climbed up, the walls trembled again. Dust fell from above. The city lights began to fade. The ancient systems were failing. When they reached the surface, the sand was already shifting, starting to cover the entrance once more. Ryan watched as the last light of the city disappeared under the desert. It is gone. Alara looked at the spot with sadness but also peace. It will sleep again. That is enough. They returned to the rover and drove north. The sun was setting, painting the sky with red and gold. Ryan could see that Alara was quiet, lost in thought. After a long silence, she said, You risked your life down there for me. He looked at her. We were in it together. She smiled faintly. Humans have strong hearts. My people used to think emotion made you weak. Now I see it gives you strength, Ryan shrugged. Maybe both. It can hurt, but it also keeps us going. As night came, they stopped near a high ridge to rest. Alara sat by the small fire, watching the stars rise. Ryan sat beside her, eating a ration bar. She looked at him and asked, Do you ever get tired of being alone? Ryan thought for a moment. Sometimes. But I tell myself that someone has to do the hard jobs. Someone has to keep things running. She shook her head. No one should live without a bond. Even the strongest need someone to stand beside them. He smiled slightly. And what about you? She looked into the fire. I thought I would die in that desert, forgotten by time. Then you came. You gave me hope again. Maybe that means something. The night grew quiet around them. The wind was soft and the fire crackled. Alara closed her eyes and began to hum again, the same song she had sung before. Ryan listened. The melody made him feel calm, like the desert itself was resting. After a while, he said, We will reach your ship tomorrow if we keep moving. Are you ready for that? Alara nodded slowly. Yes, but part of me fears what I will find. If my people survived, I must return to them. If not, I will have no home left. Ryan looked at her, unsure what to say. Finally, he said, Whatever happens, you will not face it alone. Her eyes softened. Thank you, Ryan. The firelight danced on her silver skin as she smiled. The bond between them had grown beyond simple friendship. It was something neither fully understood but both could feel. When morning came, they packed their gear and set out again. The sand shimmered under the bright suns. The road ahead was long, but hope guided them. As the rover rolled toward the mountains in the distance, the desert wind carried a strange sound, almost like a whisper from the past. Alara turned once to look back at the place where the buried city slept beneath the dunes. She whispered softly, Goodbye, old world. Ryan watched her for a moment, then turned his eyes forward. Ahead of them lay the last Vailari beacon, the possible key to Alara's future. He did not know what it would bring, but he was ready to face it. The desert stretched wide and endless, but now it no longer felt empty. It carried a promise of discovery, of truth, and of a bond that could change the fate of two very different souls. The sun was bright over the desert as Ryan and Alara moved toward the mountains. The sand began to change color, turning from gold to pale red. Sharp rocks rose from the ground and the air grew cooler. They had been traveling since dawn, following the beacon signal that Alara had found in the Vailari city. Ryan drove carefully, keeping the rover steady on the rough ground. The signal on the screen grew stronger with each mile. Alara sat beside him, her eyes fixed on the horizon. She looked calm, but he could feel the tension in her. "You are thinking about what we will find," he said. She nodded. "Yes, this beacon could mean survivors, or it could be only a machine left behind. I want to hope, but I fear disappointment." Ryan smiled softly. "Hope is better than fear. At least it keeps you moving." She turned to him. "You always believe that?" He shrugged. "When you live alone long enough, you learn that hope is all you have. Even when things break, you keep fixing them. That is how people like me survive." Alara smiled faintly. "Then maybe that is why you found me. You do not give up." By afternoon, they reached a narrow pass between two tall cliffs. The beacon signal was now clear and close. Ryan parked the rover and climbed out. The wind whistled through the rocks. The ground here was scattered with broken metal pieces half buried in the sand. Alara knelt beside one and brushed off the dust. The symbol on the metal was the same as the one on her pendant. Her voice trembled. "This is Valerie design. The beacon is near." They walked deeper into the pass. At the end of it, half hidden under the cliff, stood a small structure made of silver alloy. It was old, but still intact. A soft blue light blinked on top of it. "That is it," Ryan said. They stepped closer. The air felt colder around the beacon, as if the energy field still held some power. Alara placed her hand on the surface, and it responded to her touch. A soft hum filled the air, and a holographic image appeared above the beacon. The figure was tall, with the same glowing eyes and silver hair as Alara. The image spoke in a clear, calm voice. "To any Vailari who find this beacon, know that our last ship departed from this world after the fall. A few of us remain to guard the archives. If you are hearing this, then the ship may still orbit the nearby moon."
"Its name is the Luminara." Alara's eyes widened.
"The Luminara. That was my people's last ark," the message continued. "Use the signal key within the beacon to call the Luminara. May the light guide you." Then the hologram faded. Ryan looked at Alara. "So your ship might still be up there." Her hands trembled as she opened a small panel on the beacon. Inside was a crystal disk glowing with faint blue light. "This is the signal key. It can activate the ship's communication channel," Ryan said. "Then we need to reach higher ground to send the signal." They climbed the cliff nearby, carrying the equipment with them. The climb was steep, but they reached the top as the suns began to set. From there they could see the vast desert stretching endlessly and the first stars appearing in the sky. Alara connected the crystal key to a small transmitter from the rover. Blue light spread across the sand as the signal powered up. She adjusted the frequency and began to send a coded message. "Calling vessel Luminara," she said. "This is Alara of the Vailari, descendant of House Sorel. Respond if you can hear me." The wind blew softly as they waited. A minute passed, then two. The transmitter flickered, then a faint voice came through, broken by static. "This is the Luminara. Identity confirmed. Signal strength low. Please repeat." Alara gasped, tears forming in her eyes. "They are alive," Ryan smiled. "You did it," she steadied her voice and spoke again. "This is Alara. I was lost on the surface. I have found one of the old cities in this beacon. I request pickup." The voice replied, "Coordinates received. We will begin descent. Stay clear of the landing zone." The signal ended. Alara turned to Ryan, her eyes glowing brighter than ever. "They are coming." Ryan looked up at the sky where the stars were appearing. "I guess your people never left after all." She nodded. They stayed close, waiting for the right call. They watched the horizon as the sky grew dark. After some time, a bright light appeared high above. It moved slowly, descending like a falling star. The light grew larger until it became clear it was a ship. Its surface shone like silver glass reflecting the moonlight. It was vast and elegant, shaped like a curved wing. The ship hovered above the desert, and beams of light spread down to the ground, clearing the sand with waves of energy. Ryan shielded his eyes as the light reached them. When it faded, a smaller craft descended from the main ship and landed nearby. The door opened and 3 figures stepped out. They were Vailari, tall and graceful like Alara, their armor glowing with soft light. Alara ran forward. "I am Alara of House Sorel." One of them stepped closer, scanning her. "Confirmed. You were listed as lost during the fall. It is an honor to see you alive," she smiled, her voice shaking. "I thought I would never see my kind again." The leader of the group looked at Ryan. "And this human? He is with you?" Alara turned to Rian. Yes, he saved me. I owe him my life. The Vylari leader nodded politely. Then he is welcome. Ryan bowed his head slightly. Glad to meet you. I did not expect to find a whole ship full of you up there. The Vylari looked at him with calm eyes. We expected no one would ever find us. You have done something few could. They guided Rian and Alara into the craft. Inside, everything glowed with silver blue light. The walls were smooth and alive with faint energy. Ryan had never seen technology so advanced. The craft lifted into the air and rose toward the ship above. Through the window, the desert became small and distant. The stars grew brighter, and soon the ship came into view again. The Luminara was massive, shaped like a crescent moon, moving slowly in orbit above the planet. When they docked inside, a large chamber opened before them. Dozens of Vylari stood waiting. Their eyes followed Alara as she stepped forward. A tall woman with golden markings on her forehead came to greet her. Alara, the woman said, I am Saren, commander of the Luminara. We thought we had lost you forever. Alara bowed deeply. I was trapped on the surface when the storms came. This human found me and helped me survive. Saren looked at Ryan. Then we owe you a great debt. Ryan said, I only did what anyone should do. The commander smiled slightly. Not everyone would risk their life for a stranger from another world. She turned to Alara. We have waited for this day. The archives you found may help us repair our systems. You have given our people hope. Ryan looked around. The ship's interior was peaceful, but filled with a sense of waiting. It was like a city in the sky, silent yet alive. After the formal greetings, they were led to a chamber with a view of the planet below. Alara stood by the window, looking down at the desert that had once been her prison. Rian joined her. So this is it. You are home again, she nodded slowly. It feels strange. I thought I would feel only joy, but I also feel sadness. That world below gave me pain, but it also gave me strength. And it gave me you. Ryan looked out the window. Maybe that is what survival means. You take both pain and strength with you. She smiled softly. You speak like a Vylari philosopher. He laughed. I just speak like a man who has seen too much sand. For a while they stood in silence. The commander entered again and said, Alara, we have analyzed the data you brought. It contains the code to restore our energy systems. The Luminara can now travel again. Alara turned. Then our people can leave this planet? Yes, we can move to a safer system. You have given us that chance. Ryan felt a pang in his chest. He knew what that meant. Once they left, Alara would go with them. She would return to her people, to her real home. Later that night, Alara found him standing in the observation bay, watching the stars. She stepped beside him. You are quiet, she said. He nodded. Just thinking. You finally found your people. You should be happy. She looked at him gently. I am happy, but I do not want to lose what I found on that desert. He met her eyes. You mean the archives? She shook her head. No, I mean you. Rian's heart pounded. Alara, you belong with your people. You have a whole world waiting for you. She smiled softly. And yet in the desert I learned what it means to live, to care, to hope. You showed me that. Among my people we value knowledge and power, but you showed me the value of kindness. That is something I cannot forget. He tried to speak but could not find the words. Alara continued. When the storms buried me, I thought it was the end. When you found me, it was the beginning of something new. You gave me life again. Now I want to share that life with you. He looked at her, uncertain. You mean you want to stay? She smiled, her silver eyes shining like the stars outside. Yes. My people may travel again, but my heart has already chosen its path. The lights of the ship reflected off her face, and for the first time since he found her, Ryan felt something he had not felt in years, peace. He looked out at the stars, then back at her. Then we face whatever comes next together. She nodded. Together. Outside, the Luminara drifted through the sky, its engines glowing softly. Below, the desert stretched wide and silent, holding the memories of their journey. Above, new stars waited to guide them toward an unknown future. The lost maiden had found her people, but she had also found something far greater, a bond that reached beyond worlds. And for the first time, both human and Vylari shared the same dream of tomorrow. The Luminara moved silently through the void, its silver hull reflecting the light of distant stars. Inside, Alara and Rian walked together through the main corridor, the soft hum of the ship beneath their feet. For days, the crew had repaired systems, restored energy channels, and prepared the ship to leave orbit. The process was slow, careful, and precise. Alara paused beside a viewing window. Below them, the desert of Sera 4 stretched in red and gold. The dunes looked peaceful, unaware of the lives that had crossed them. She turned to Ryan. "This world gave me pain and hope," she said quietly. "It gave me life again. And it gave me you." Ryan smiled, but his heart weighed heavy. "You have your people waiting, a home among the stars. I am just me." She took his hand. "That is exactly why I want you. My people have knowledge and power, but they lack what you have. Courage, patience, and kindness. Those are the qualities I need beside me. Not just as a friend, but as someone who shares life with me." Rian looked into her silver blue eyes and felt something he had not felt in years. Certainty. She had risked nothing in asking, but she had given him a gift larger than any he had known, the chance to belong. The corridors of the ship hummed as they walked toward the command center. Alara had arranged a meeting with the crew to discuss the ship's next course and what her future would hold. The Velari stood respectfully as she entered, their eyes bright and calm. "Commander Saren," Alara began, "this human has been by my side through the storm, through danger, and through the desert. I ask that he be allowed to remain with me as part of our journey." The commander tilted her head thoughtfully. "You mean to take him aboard beyond his homeworld?" Alara nodded. "Yes, he has given me hope and he has shown courage. I cannot return to the stars without him." Saren studied Rian. "You are human. Your skills are valuable, but you must understand our ways are different. Living among us will not be simple." Rian met her gaze calmly. "I do not expect it to be simple. I only expect to be trusted to stand beside her." The commander's eyes softened. "Then you have my permission. But understand that the journey ahead will test both of you." Alara smiled. "We are ready." After the meeting, Alara and Ryan stood alone on the observation deck. The stars stretched endlessly around them, but both of them were focused only on each other. "You know," Ryan said, "I never thought I would leave the desert alive. And now I may leave the planet completely." She laughed softly. "I thought I would never find anyone who cared for me, who could face the desert, the storms, the ruins. And now I have found you." He felt warmth rise inside him. "Alara, if we do this, if we travel with your people, I don't know what awaits. The stars are wide and your worlds are different from mine. I am not sure I belong there." She took both his hands in hers. "You belong where we are together. You brought life to my solitude. That is all that matters. You belong with me." For a long moment he remained silent. The desert had been lonely, but it had also taught him to survive. Yet the vastness of space, the life of another people, it frightened him. He looked at her and saw determination, hope, and love shining in her eyes. Finally, he nodded. "Then I go with you." Alara smiled, relief shining on her face. "Then our journey truly begins." The next day, the Luminara prepared to leave orbit. The smaller craft that had brought them to the ship detached and moved back toward the planet. Alara and Rian stood on the observation deck, watching the desert below shrink into the distance. "You see it differently now," she said softly. "It will remain in our memories, but the stars call us forward." Ryan nodded. "I will not forget it. Not the desert, not the storms, not the first time I saw you lying in the sand." Alara touched his arm. "And I will not forget you. You gave me life again." As the ship left orbit, the stars multiplied. The twin suns of Sera 4 disappeared behind them, leaving a vast black sky lit by distant galaxies. Ryan felt awe in the way he had never felt before. Space was endless, full of possibility, and yet he did not fear it because Alara was beside him. The days aboard the Luminara passed quickly. Alara taught him Velari customs and language, while he shared human ways of practicality, survival, and humor. They trained together, learned together, and faced small tasks aboard the ship that required trust and cooperation. One evening, the ship entered a field of glowing asteroids. The crew worked to navigate carefully, but Ryan noticed something unusual. The patterns of the field suggested intelligence, like the rocks themselves were organized. He pointed it out to Alara. "They are moving as if alive," he said. Alara observed. "Yes, this system has strange energy patterns. My people studied them before the fall. It may be a natural phenomenon, or it may hold hidden secrets." They guided the ship safely through the field side by side. The moment left both of them breathless with wonder. Days later, the Luminara approached a large moon orbiting a gas giant. The last known coordinates of the Vylari fleet were here. The ship slowed and the crew activated long-range sensors. A faint signal appeared on the monitor. "Multiple vessels," Alara said. "Scattered but functional. Some may still hold members of our people." Ryan looked at her. "Then we may reunite your people completely." "Yes," she said, her voice soft. "And now we face what we have been waiting for. But I am not afraid. You are here with me." They descended toward the largest ship in the fleet. Its hull was scratched and dented from long years in orbit, but its systems flickered with life. Alara and Rian led a boarding party aboard. As the airlock opened, Vylari emerged from their stations, eyes wide in astonishment. "Alara," one cried. "We thought you lost forever." She embraced them, and Ryan watched quietly, standing beside her. When she turned toward him, she took his hand and guided him forward. "These are my people," she said softly. "And now you are part of this story too." The crew welcomed him, impressed by his courage and his calm, steady presence. Even though he was human, they recognized his value. Alara had chosen him, and they respected that choice. After the reunion, Alara and Ryan returned to the observation deck. Below, the moon glowed softly, reflecting the light of distant stars. "Now what?" Ryan asked. Alara looked at him with her glowing eyes. "Now we travel together. We guide my people to safety, to new worlds, and we explore the stars as a team. And we build a life together. I want you as my partner, my companion, my family." Ryan smiled. "I never thought anyone would say that to me. But I will not refuse." She laughed softly. "Then it is settled." As the fleet prepared to leave the moon, the Luminara led the way. Rian and Alara stood together on the observation deck, holding hands, watching the planets and stars move around them. The past, the desert, the storms, the lost cities felt distant now. "What is out there?" Ryan asked. Alara smiled. "Possibility, adventure, knowledge, and the life we choose together." Ryan nodded. "Then let us go together." The fleet of Vylari ships followed the Luminara, engines glowing softly. The stars stretched infinitely before them, and Rian felt a sense of wonder he had never known. He looked at Alara and saw not just the lost maiden of the desert, but a partner, a friend, and a love that reached beyond worlds. Together they moved through the stars. Every planet they passed, every new world they explored, they faced as one. And in the quiet moments when Rian thought about the desert where their journey began, he knew that the bond forged in hardship and hope would last forever. The stars above were endless, but they no longer felt empty. They had each other, and that was enough. Alara looked at him and whispered, "I chose you." He smiled and held her hand tighter. "And I chose you." As the Luminara sailed into the unknown, Ryan realized that the desert had given him more than survival. It had given him purpose, adventure, and the chance to love and be loved. Alara had found her people, but together they had also found a new home, among the stars. Together, forever. The lost maiden of the desert had found her human, and he had found a world bigger than he had ever imagined, and together they would explore the endless sky. The stars waited for them, and they were ready.